Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to CIB in Conversation with Keith Hampson. I'm Don Ward, Chief Executive of CIB, and in part one of this discussion, we were talking to Keith about his role as CEO of Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre in Australia, and his early career, his professional interests, his links with professional bodies and so on. In part two, what we want to do is focus on CIB. He has been president of CIB since the World Building Congress in Hong Kong in 2019, and he'll serve in that capacity until the next World Building Congress in Melbourne in 2022. So Keith, welcome back to the discussion. You've been involved in CIB a long time. So how did you first get involved?
Don, it has been a long time. It's been an enjoyable 25 years, and 25 years just sort of rolls off the tongue. But in a quarter of a century, I've had some great CIB moments, and it has allowed me, in a very real sense, to progress in my research career, but also help me build personal relationships around the world. So it's been a fundamental part of my life for the past 25 years. My involvement came as I returned to Australia after completing my doctoral studies in the US. And at the time, we had at my university a new head of school out of the University of Salford, Professor Martin Skidmore. And Salford University were very strongly engaged in the CIB in a European context, and through people like Peter Brandon and Martin Skidmore and others, particularly out of the University of Salford. I was invited to spend some time at Salford and also got well engaged in the CIB as what you could say in an early postdoctoral career was an early an ECR, an early career researcher. So in those days, the active groups were W65, Organisation and Management of Construction, and W55, Construction Industry Economics. And those two groups often had joint annual conferences and gatherings. And I can well remember, Don, cruising down the Ohio River in Cincinnati as the University of Cincinnati hosted the W65 event in 2002, and meeting colleagues from across the world, but also making friendships and remaking friendships with people like Kalle Kokkonen from VTT at the time in Finland, and Jan Brockner from Chalmers University, Peter Brandon from Salford University. And these stalwarts of construction research were prominent and very much supportive of the CIB initiatives back then. Since then, the rest is history. I've slipped into a range of working commissions and task groups. Don?
And how would you say you were able to use that involvement, Keith, to advance your own career? You know, you've described some of the values, but how did it actually help you demonstrate or achieve the career advancement that you were looking for?
Yeah, no, good question. The networks are important, and the personal good times of having a beer with CIB colleagues after a particularly grueling day at a conference are memorable, but they don't advance directly your career. Publication is important for universities. Publication is an area that I was able to participate in and help drive in the CIB. In fact, in anticipation of your question, I've got a couple of green publications here with the CIB logo on the front.
Indeed,
This particular publication, led by a couple of great guys out of the National Research Council of Canada, Andre Manso and George Seedham, Innovation in Construction, an international review of public policies from 2001, came out of a working commission or a task group at the time called TG35, Innovation Systems in Construction. kicked off in 2000. And over that couple of years of the task group's formation, my colleague Karen Manley and I put together a chapter called Construction Innovation and Public Policy in Australia. And that was a great start, or a base foundation of looking at how publication through the CIB could leverage into career opportunities. And at the time, I was leading the CRC for construction innovation. So having a baseline of funding agencies for construction research in Australia and comparing how that might be provided for across the globe was very helpful in terms of helping the career in research leadership, but also in building publications.
So you're able to collate and draw on sort of global expertise. So it's an opportunity for global benchmarking then, by the sound of it.
No, not at all, Don.
Which is compelling for policymakers and research funders, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's fair to say that from membership of that task group, then taking the initiative, and at the time with Professor Peter Brandon from Salford University, we stepped up and formed a group called TG58, Clients and Construction Innovation, in 2006, that came off the Australian leading work called Construction 2020, a vision for Australia's property and construction industry, co-authored with Peter Brandon, which again has got a terrific publication hit. And since then, Task Group 85, R&D, Investment and Impact, with my colleagues Judy Kratz and Adriana Sanchez at QUT, and a task group that's just wrapped up, Task Group 90, Information Integration in Construction, again with Adriana Sanchez from QUT and my colleague from Chalmers University in Sweden, in Rasmus Rempling, Integrated Information in Built Environments, another publication, but this time as a co-author of a book, as well as a number of chapters. It all adds to the publication repertoire, but also adds to the ability to build reputations in this space. CIB has been fundamental to that, Don.
Two things have just occurred to me, Keith, as you're talking there. One of them is, and I should know the answer to this, to be honest, but I'm going to plead that I've only been chief executive 6 months. You've named at least 4 working commissions there that you personally have been involved in. Are you exceptional that you were involved in so many different commissions, or how common is that researchers, and where's the value to those who are thinking that they only, you know, they've got their one research interest, therefore there's one commission they want to get involved in? You've obviously had value from being involved in several. Is that something that you'd suggest to others?
Horses for courses, really. My primary involvement in these have been through the task groups. Task groups typically have a working life of 3 years. So really since 2000, 3-year blocks of consecutive and value-adding research over those years in 3-year blocks hasn't necessarily meant that I've been involved in those consecutively. These have been sequential. So my involvement predominantly has been in these innovation in construction and R&D in construction initiatives that have been developed through the task group processes. Some others, and if I can recommend perhaps, involvement in specific working commissions, a deep and long-term involvement in that might be akin to a continuing involvement in a theme of research through task groups, for example. So I don't think there's any one way that I might suggest is better than another. The real message is get involved and contribute and help in the leadership of these initiatives for strengthening both the global research effort, but also bringing that closer to home and in your own research institution, helping to provide valuable outcomes.
Keith, that's great. Thank you, and thank you, by the way, for educating me in terms of the subtle, less than subtle, I guess, distinction between working commissions and task groups. That's excellent. The second thing that occurred to me was these publications look beautiful. You know, they look lovely on your desk there, and I think they were probably on the bookcase behind you before then. You know, but how do we stop publications like this just being beautiful additions to the bookcase? And actually make sure that the research community and that the industry, the wider industry practitioners and so on, benefit from the knowledge that they represent?
Very good question. Look, I think that certainly my stream of interest is around making a difference to industry practice. Yeah. So for me, the value in providing in inputting as a researcher or leading research at a project or as a centre in, for example, the Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre is about making a difference. So the engagement, and I mentioned this publication, Construction 2020, for example, the engagement of the industry associations throughout in developing the map of how we might carry out the interviews, the questionnaires, the workshops, the way in which we've interpreted the results into how to make a difference of interpreting outcomes for industry improvement. And I might say the implementation into government policy is all about how to make a difference. So I have, I guess, both on a personal level, but also in terms of the research centres that I've led, always been of the view that our fundamental goal is about helping improve industry practice, and the publications have also provided, you know, appropriate credibility in terms of academic progression. The two can go hand in glove. There's no doubt about that, and I encourage researchers towards that dual outcome of academic and industry value.
Thank you, Keith. We had a little bit of interference on the line then, but again, I think it was okay. I don't think the problem in understanding what you were saying. And I'm looking to my producer, and I think she's giving me the nod. So we'll carry on. We won't record. We'll allow that to stand as it were. One of the things I'm interested in, Keith, is conferences and CIB's focus. You referred to cruising down the Mississippi and how much fun that was, and you know, the value of the personal networking and so on and so forth. In the current era, in the era of COVID-19, you know, there's no opportunity for face-to-face conferences. We're all Zooming, or we're using Microsoft Teams, or other such systems are available. How would you promote the value when we get back to being able to hold face-to-face conferences? How are you going to sell that to people to persuade them that it's worth the extra time and the extra budget, you know, the financial commitment to come to these conferences, rather than continue just to be using Zoom and just to be sharing what wouldn't be necessarily now beautiful green books on your desk there, but they would be PDFs on the screen. What's the added value of face-to-face conferences?
Don, I value very much the chance to have a virtual connection at times when it's impossible to do anything differently, and I think that's been a great addition to the repertoire of organisations like CIB, and CIB, I'm delighted to say, has embraced digital communication through its webinars, through its virtual board meetings, and I want to highlight the successes that you guys are making in upgrading our website, for example. It's a terrific step forward. But for me, and I know for many people who are energised through personal contact, there is no substitute for face-to-face contact. And, you know, I have been known to have a glass of red wine over dinner, and it's very hard to enjoy and talk about how good the dinner was, and to enjoy the camaraderie around a dinner table on Zoom. There are certain shortfalls of the digital world, and so it's fair to say that some of the publications that we've talked about, some of the engagement in task groups and commissions have been made that additional step more enjoyable and, I might say, valuable and productive by the after formal connection engagement is over. Yeah. The informal chatter, the ability to socialise after meetings is nigh on impossible in a virtual environment. It's critical in the face-to-face environment, and I only urge CIB members to attend conferences in a face-to-face mode as soon as it's safe to do so, and I look forward to engagement in that, I trust, from next year and beyond. So it's pivotal to that long-lasting relationship.
Thank you, Keith. And yes, it does feel, doesn't it, that COVID-19 has really jumped us, or has advanced us maybe 5 years in terms of the use of technology for these sorts of sessions. It seems also, and I know you've been in discussions, Ron Wakefield is leading our planning for World Building Congress 2022. And one of the tricks, probably, would you agree, is going to be how do you combine that added value of face-to-face conferences, but still with the opportunity for people to engage virtually, remotely. You know, that trick of combining both approaches in a hybrid model. Do you agree that's sort of an area where we've got more to learn, really? I haven't necessarily seen it done very well yet by anybody, but I hope that CIB will be in the vanguard of developing a good model or good models for how to do that hybrid approach.
No, I think that's true, and I believe that there's a genuine market for both approaches, for both modes. It is inevitable that some prospective attendees may not be able to attend for whatever reason in a face-to-face mode, and rather than miss out on the opportunity altogether of engaging in the various sessions or some specific sessions, they will be given the opportunity in the World Building Congress in June 2022 to participate in those. But more important will be those who are able to make the commitment to be there in a face-to-face mode. I mean, the ability to make those personal connections and to build discussions around a formal session into an informal session, and to take those discussions technically and personally and professionally further in an informal setting, over a cup of coffee, over a glass of wine, over dinner, is absolutely critical. And I just encourage every attendee or every person who might be engaged in the World Building Congress 2022, June 2022 in Melbourne, to make the effort to be there face-to-face. For those who can't, absolutely understand that situation, and we look forward to making those sessions available in where they're available in a virtual mode to be as helpful and informative as possible as well.
Brilliant. Keith, thank you. You make a compelling case. Well, I hope our viewers agree that you make a compelling case. Let's just take a step up, Keith. Let's give you the opportunity to, you became president. Well, it's actually 15 months ago now. You're almost coming up to halfway through your term of office. I don't know if that had struck you before, but anyway, let's give you the opportunity to set out your vision of what your 3-year term, your vision for CIB, not just in your presidency, but in the longer term.
Sure, Don. In Hong Kong, in the World Building Congress 2019, hosted by Hong Kong Poly, and a great conference it was as well. When I was fortunate to have been elected as president of the CIB for the 3 years starting in June 2019, I really highlighted 3 goals. One was to restore research at the centre of the CIB. Number 2 was about ensuring that the member services is reinforced, or that the member is reinforced as at the centre of the CIB, and therefore to ensure that that happens through improved member services. And 3 is to assist in the establishment of the machinery to deliver items number 1 and 2. And so those 3 goals, I'm really pleased to say, are well advanced. And I'm delighted since the beginning of this year in 2020, Don, that you've made the welcome step into the leadership as CEO of the CIB. That we're in I'm confident now and feel every day that we're in a new world of being able to move forward with a CIB that's being re-energised and modernised every day. So I'm confident that we're getting the energy levels up to a level where we can actually be proud of where we're going. But in the particular sense of restoring the research to be the centre of the CIB, I'm really pleased that through Michael Beam, the Program Director, that the coordination and the communication between the task forces and the working commissions is like it hasn't been, I would suggest, before. And also at the other side of that is the communication between the researchers and the board. And for the last couple of board meetings, we've had direct communications enabled by our virtual board meetings between coordinators, task group leaders, and other researchers with the board. So I'm confident that that side of our remodernising, reshaping the organisation is well advanced. But on the other side, if I can say, Don, students to build the research capabilities of the future, early career researchers who will turn into future commission or task group coordinators, who will turn into publishers of documents, who will turn into global research leaders and will lead the CIB board going forward, have been also absolutely had their role reinforced in the new CIB. So again, under the leadership of Albert Chan as Student Committee Chair, and with Michael Beam and yourself, we've been delighted at a board level, and as President I've been delighted with the progress that we're making to reinforce the role of today's students being tomorrow's leading researchers and commission leaders. So that engagement and their connection with the board is pivotal. And I look forward to the next half of my presidency, Don, in continuing that and seeing the early results of this re-energised, modernised CIB.
Well, thank you, Keith. I'll just ask you another question about that in a second. But for those people listening, a little tip for you. It's always a good idea as the chief executive to listen very, very carefully to what the president says are his priorities and make sure we're focused on those. And so I'm glad you set them out so clearly. And yeah, I hope that people agree with you that we can start to evidence progress on all 3 of those priorities. So you finished there particularly by emphasizing students and early career researchers, Keith. I mean, as in the remaining term, you know, working up to World Building Congress 2022, what's the deliverable that you think we can achieve by June 2022 that would really add value for the student and early career researcher amongst our community?
Yeah, Don, when I look at the wide range of task groups and working commissions across the disciplines that make up the built environment and therefore the CIB research landscape, there would be numerous opportunities, I think, that that the commission and task group coordinators can identify to more integrally involve students in activities. not in a superficial way, but in an integrated way. And co-authorship of publications, co-leadership of initiatives, and dare I suggest co-leadership of the commissions themselves is a very a strong message to early career researchers and students as they develop into early career researchers, that the CIB provides a pathway for them, both within the CIB, but also assisting them in their research careers, be they in research institutes. We talked previously about the National Research Council of Canada, for example. The Building Research Association of New Zealand is another one. And many of our members across CIB are not universities, but research institutes. Yep. Those researchers and the development of their careers through the networks and the subject content leadership that CIB offers, together with university researchers, can provide a great platform for early career researchers that will lead to, and we talked before about the World Building Congress in June 2022 in Melbourne, and I trust that's in everybody's calendars as as you listen to this. We will see more students, more early career researchers having a greater role in the CIB sessions, and I trust sharing valuable experiences and learnings across the peer groups that they represent, as well as vertically integrating across experienced members of the task groups, coordinators and the board than we've ever seen before. And I look forward to being part of that strengthened student involvement in World Building Congress 2022.
Keith, you describe it beautifully, and what strikes me is that the idea of horizontal and vertical integration of CIB's core programs in this way is very much the outcome of the 3 initiatives which you set out in 2019. So I think that's a great way of describing the progression of CIB, if you will, into the next era. Again, viewers, note, CEO listening to the president, I hope. Keith, we referred earlier to COVID-19 in the context of stopping us having face-to-face conferences. Does it, are there other challenges or even upsides which occur to you that, you know, students and early career researchers perhaps ought to be thinking about? I mean, you know, if I was a PhD student right now, I might be a little bit concerned about what my next steps in my career were going to be. You know, we read daily of challenges around budgets in the research sector and in universities. So do you have any advice for young people in our sector, and in terms of actions that they might be taking, given the challenges that the pandemic has presented?
I do, and I offer this advice in a context of understanding that there have been far too many of our global citizens afflicted by COVID, and unfortunately, of course, many have died. It is a serious stage of our world's history, and the pandemic has made us rethink a whole range of things. But that means that more than ever, we shouldn't be sitting on our hands. We need to be proactive in the way forward as to, in our particular context in the CIB and for researchers in the built environment, to identify where we can help the future of the world. And, you know, that might sound a bit grandiose, but the future of the world's in our hands. You know, humans spend 90% of their time in the built environment, whether they live, work and play. I mean, the built environment is really the core of human existence. And so whether we're involved in working commissions that might include, for example, W99, safety and health in construction, I mean, it's pivotal to the way in which we deliver products of the built environment, whether it's homes, buildings, or transport, or energy infrastructure, for example, or perhaps W78, information technology for construction. I mean, how are we stepping up our information technology for delivering construction products and services in a more efficient way that have been informed by, tested by, and we've seen relatively robust outcomes in the digital world, and how that can be applied to a better construction. And I guess as another example might be building healthy cities, Task Group 86. How is that group's initiatives being leveraged in the post-COVID world, when we get to that? How are we actually shaping the research that we're well positioned in, that we've got the markers, we've got the benchmarks of research in those dimensions, but how are we actually shaping that into make it a COVID contribution, so that the global recognition of the value of built environment research is absolutely crystal clear? This is a great opportunity for us.
But nicely put, Keith. I mean, you mentioned 3 or 4 working commissions. CIB has over 40, of course, covering the entire diversity of research topics in the built environment. And I guess you'd see implications of the pandemic that need to be considered by all of those commissions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there's an opportunity, you know, with challenge comes, with adversity comes opportunity. And I think the opportunity of each of our research groups to make a contribution in this space should be grasped.
Well, that feels like a pretty good final message, Keith, but perhaps you've got one final soundbite, as it were, one sort of final closing thought about the CIB and the future that our viewers might like to take away with them.
Don, there are 2, I'm sorry to say. The first one that we haven't mentioned is the ability for us as an organisation to make to build a stronger financial foundation for the CIB going forward. And I'm delighted to share with members that we have formed a task group, a board task group, that has been initiated through the board and through your leadership as CEO, that's chaired by our Vice President, Mark Hustak from Purdue University in the US, looking at new sources of funding to provide a stronger financial base for the CIB, and looking towards larger investments that might be made in this organisation's future, and cementing, of course, our organisation for a much longer period, so that we're, in addition to membership fees, we also have a stream of income from additional sources. And I thank Mark Hustak as Vice President for his initiative in leading that task group. But in wrapping up, I really want to highlight the opportunity that I touched on before, and that was for a return to normal, better than normal, World Building Congress 2022, June in Melbourne, in the great state of Victoria in Australia. As a member of Sustainable Built Environment National Research Centre, RMIT has stepped forward to take this challenge, and I thank our board member, Ron Wakefield, for taking on that challenge. And I really look forward to the CIB and the broad built environment community coming together June 22 in Melbourne and driving forward the agenda, which is building our future. Never more relevant than it is now. And I look forward to seeing you at that event. Thanks, Don.
Well, thank you, Keith, and I'm sure our viewers really appreciate the last half-hour conversation. I've enjoyed it. I've learnt some more things about the value of CIB, I have to say. So I appreciate your time and effort. I appreciate this. I don't want to sound sycophantic, but you know, I appreciate your leadership of CIB at a personal level. I'm sure our members do. You're an excellent leader of the organisation, and I hope people have seen, you know, how that is and how that comes across.
It's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed my 25 years, and I feel this is an opportunity to genuinely do put back, and I look forward to continuing our good work together. And it's been a pleasure having this chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. So to our audience, if you want more information on this event and on Keith's work or details of other events in the series CIB in Conversation, you can get that information from the website, which you can see here on the screen, and other communications such as the newsletter. Anybody can sign up to our newsletter on the website. You don't have to be a member. We want to keep you informed. We want to make sure that you know what's going on. You know, hopefully that you can see the benefits of joining and tap into the value that Keith has, you know, set out for us so clearly. Finally, you know, and for anybody who's been watching this webinar, we encourage feedback and suggestions at any time. Just get in touch with us. Loads of ways to do it, as Keith has said earlier in our chat. And you know, suggestions for future guests. Who do you like to hear from in this format in future? Please let us know. But with that, I'm Don Ward. This has been CIB in Conversation. Goodbye.